Vanguards are probably the most important role for new players to be able to get into and understand. Understanding what the Vanguard is doing and what their challenges are in the game is really important to understanding the rest of the game of Marvel Rivals. With Season 0 coming to an end soon, I wanted to go through a tier list of the tanks for new players to be able to pick up. This tier list is going to talk about how easy that tank is to learn and be effective as. We've got 8 Vanguards to go through, so let's drill into it. First up is Bruce Banner and the Hulk. The Hulk is a pretty C tier tank for new players. Hulk requires you to have pretty good understanding of the map. You need to be pretty mobile to be effective as the Hulk, and knowing the map layouts is really important to his playstyle due to his ability to jump around and his need to go find health packs on the regular. A lot of Hulk's skill comes with proper usage of his exile as well as timing of his shield. New players don't really have the speed and reaction time to pull off the shield effectively, and they don't have the strategic mindset to properly use exile. If you aren't exiling priority targets and taking them out of the fight, and you're not able to use your shield to protect against powerful ultimates or to stop crowd control, you're going to be rather ineffective as the Hulk. He doesn't really have any self-sustain, and you're going to find yourself getting crowd control, taken out, and put into Bruce Banner on the regular. Then you're going to be immediately dying because you're in the middle of the enemy team as a squishy backline character. Next up is Captain America. Now, Captain America isn't a good tank in the higher ranks of the game. However, for new players, he's almost A tier, but I'm probably going to say B tier. Captain America struggles where all of his numbers are just a touch too low. He doesn't quite do enough damage, and he doesn't quite block enough or be able to heal enough with his ultimate to be as effective as he needs to be compared to all of the other Vanguards. You can learn a lot of what tanks need to do playing this character, and in the lower lobbies, he's actually more beneficial because players have a harder time tracking him and his fast movements. Doctor Strange. Overall, Doctor Strange is the strongest tank in the game, but he's also rather complicated, with animation cancels, weaving in melee attacks, and usage of his portal being very important to his kit, as well as your accuracy having a big impact on how effective you are with this character. Needing to build up your dark energy to get the maximum out of your damage output is really bad if you don't have good tracking and don't have good aim. So in overall tier list, Doctor Strange is definitely S tier, but on beginner tier list, he's actually on the bottom of A. Going into the A ranks is his safest spot. He's definitely a great option, the shield is fantastic, and he teaches you a lot of what you need to be able to do as a Vanguard. You're just not going to be utilizing his kit to an effective enough level to push him up into the S tiers. Groot. Groot is the absolute worst tank for a new player to pick up. The unique thing about Groot compared to every other tank is that his mitigation comes entirely through blocking shots that can both block your enemies as well as your allies. An ineffective or inexperienced Groot is going to find themselves blocking their allies from being effective more often than they actually find themselves blocking their enemies. Putting up barriers, trapping your allies in unfortunate situations, or blocking off finishing blows onto targets is very common with new Groots, and Groot is a very bad choice if you don't really know what's going on, because the use of his walls is almost always going to be a detriment to your team. Until you've climbed yourself all the way up into gold ranks and competitive, I probably wouldn't recommend you even touching Groot, and even at gold ranks, you're going to be struggling to have him be effective. He is the D tier new player tank. Magneto. Although a little bit slow, Magneto is extremely effective as a Vanguard, and he teaches you a lot of what you need to do as this type of tank. He is highly my recommended tank for new players to be able to pick up because he teaches you everything that Vanguards are supposed to do. He has great survivability, his shields and blocks have low cooldowns that you can cycle through to keep him very healthy. As you learn to switch between your two different forms of shields and get a lot of poke off with this character, you're going to find yourself climbing up the ranks as a Vanguard and really understanding what the role is supposed to be doing in general. Magneto is an S tier new player tank and becomes even better once you learn how to use his ultimate to shut down other ultimates like Star-Lord, Punisher, or Iron Man. Peni Parker is nearly an S tier tank for new players. In new player lobbies, players are really bad about ever shooting the spider nest, and having the spider nest down is a massive boost to Penny's damage. What keeps Peni at bay in higher lobbies is players are better and better at removing this threat off of the map, and if players just ignore it, you're going to be doing so much damage. The problem with Peni and why she can't push up into the S ranks is that she doesn't really do what any of the other Vanguards do. She's not there standing in the way of hits, blocking enemy attacks. She's anti-dive and zone control. She is stunning targets and put out mines, making it so it's difficult for enemies to move into location. A lot of new players are going to play Vanguards like they're supposed to be right in front of all of the enemies, eating every hit, and that's just not what Peni can do. She does have some mitigation and quite a bit of self-healing when in her own webs, but not enough to take the full effects of an enemy team. Once you learn to play Peni in the lower ranks, you're going to find yourselves easily wiping out teams because everyone's just ignoring your mines and you're going to get a huge amount of damage. So Peni fits happily into the A rank, above Doctor Strange for new players. Just because of the amount of Strange's kit that you're wasting as a new player, you're not going to quite find the same level of effectiveness with him that you will with Peni. Thor. Thor is another character that is really good for new players and falls off drastically as you climb through the ranks. He's a brawler style tank that's very disruptive and can be very overbearing when enemy teams don't really know what to do about him. High mobility, a big impact ultimate that players are likely to stand in at the lower ranks, and a huge amount of damage output from his lightning hands puts Thor comfortably into the S tier for new player tanks. And finally, we have Venom. Venom's the dive tank who needs to slam into the enemy team and cause a bunch of disruption. For very beginner players, Venom is a terrible option, because you don't really know or understand the timings to be able to play Venom well. But he is still one of the strongest early game tanks because enemy players also don't really know how to deal with it. As you learn a little bit about the Vanguard role, switching over to Venom and being able to mess with the enemy backlines effectively is really great. But Venom often cannot be the only tank on a team. The rest of your teammates are going to get steamrolled if you're playing Venom as the only tank and you're a beginner player. I think overall Venom fits pretty well just above Captain America into the B tier tanks. He's more effective than Cap at everything Cap wants to do as a dive tank, so that puts him above Cap there in those roles. He's definitely not a bad option, and you're going to find a lot of success playing Venom. I would definitely recommend new players pick anything up from B, A, or S tiers, but the S tier tanks are definitely the two I'd recommend newest players spend a lot of time on. Learning those roles and playing those characters, you're going to find yourself pretty oppressive into the enemy team. Now, as you get deeper into the game, everything around here kind of changes around. We get some major adjustments to some of these roles, and there's quite a few changes that occur. Strange moves up to S, where Thor drops all the way down to C. Groot becomes an A tier, where Captain America downgrades to D. And finally, Hulk moves up, probably into the S tiers at the very top end of play, but maybe high A tier when you're not quite at the Grandmaster level ranks. In top tier play, the dive and brawler style tanks mostly are ineffective, with the exception of the Hulk, mostly because of his team up ability. Boosting both Doctor Strange and Iron Man significantly puts him up into the S tiers. Having an idea of where your tank ends up along this tier list as you move into the higher tiers of play is going to be good for you to understand when it's the right time to switch to a new tank. I hope this tier list helps you understand the tanks to pick up as a new player coming into Marvel Rivals. And next time, we're going to talk about the strategists. I'm Zesty Fresh with Zaza Games, and we'll catch you guys next time. Zaze.